Here now is Stephanie Baker. She's a senior writer for Bloomberg News, and she wrote today's big take. The end of the oligarch era nears with Putin's miscalculation in Ukraine, and also David Merritt, senior executive editor for Bloomberg News. Stephanie, thank you so much for being here. Stephanie, can we start with you a little bit, because I'm wondering, by the EU targeting certain oligarchs with sanctions, what kind of impact is it having most directly?
Yes, well, the EU has gone much more aggressively after Russian billionaires than the UK or even the US in some respects. And we're already seeing the effect of that today. Igor Sechin, the CEO and chairman of Rosneft, his yacht was seized by the French. There are other yachts of oligarchs being seized. So I think you're seeing an immediate fallout. And the real question is why the UK hasn't gone further. London, as many people know, has been a magnet for Russian wealth since the 1990s, giving it the nickname Londongrad. But so far they've sanctioned maybe a third of the number of oligarchs that the EU has. UK Foreign Secretary Liz Truss has said she is drawing up a hit list of sanctions, but she has told MPs that lawyers for the Russian billionaires are hitting back and threatening to challenge those penalties in the courts. So they're facing a very difficult time pushing this forward. The idea, of course, is to isolate Putin's regime and deny him the funds to wage this war, and targeting the oligarchs is one way to do that, since they own so many big businesses within Russia, and some of them meet regularly with Putin himself.
David, can you weigh in on this? Because Stephanie brings up a really great point. A lot of people are criticizing the UK for the speed in which they're choosing to sanction these oligarchs. But yesterday we saw, in particular, Roman Abramovich, owner of Chelsea, decide to give up his own ownership of Chelsea, and there's reports that he's selling some of his homes. So is this him getting ahead of what's to come from the UK? What is your read into this?
Yes, there is a sense, I think, of his jumping on this, I guess, before he was pushed. And it is perhaps symbolic of what Stephanie was just saying, that the UK government has been dragging their feet on this. Roman Abramovich, perhaps the biggest or the most famous symbol of Russian wealth in London, owning the Chelsea Football Club now for nearly 2 decades, used to be feted as a real hero. He injected so much money into that club. He was incredibly popular for transforming their fortunes, turned them into champions with the billions of dollars that he poured into them over the years. So from hero to outcast, but he is jumping, as I said before, he's pushed. Notably, he said the billions of dollars he's hoping to get for the club, he's pledging that for who he describes as the victims on both sides of the war, and attempting to paint himself as someone who's really angling for peace and really not on the side of President Putin. But, again, the British government not being the ones in control here. Very interesting contrast with what Stephanie was saying in Europe today, with these huge super yachts being seized, one in the south of France, I believe, and one in Germany. There's no action like that from the British government. This does not come easily to Boris Johnson's Conservative Party. And I just think it shows you the degree to which Russian wealth has been enmeshed in London, in the UK, for decades now. These families, their businesses, their children attending elite schools in the UK and universities, owning things like football clubs. And finally, let's not forget donating, political donations, to Boris Johnson's own Conservative Party.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely something I was going to ask about, Stephanie. Why is it so hard, or why has it been so slow for the UK to impose greater sanctions? And is it because of how ingrained they are into London society and societies around the world?
Yes, I mean, we're trying to report that out as to why the UK is being so slow, why their rhetoric doesn't match the actions that they have taken so far. I think the argument that UK officials seem to be making is they need to make sure that all these sanctions are legally watertight and they are not challenged in court. There may be differences, I believe, in the sanctions regime in the UK post-Brexit that make it easier for Russian billionaires to challenge those sanctions, which is pretty interesting. But I think there's also, the speculation that it is so enmeshed with, the British economy that there's a certain amount of dependency of the City of London on some of this money, that it's going to be hard to untangle. I do believe that it's going to take some time to identify the assets as well, because there's not a lot of transparency in the UK, for instance, at the moment, about the property that is owned by Russian oligarchs. There is this movement, a proposal, draft legislation that is going through Parliament, likely starting next week, to come up with a register of beneficial owners of UK property that's registered offshore, and that will provide crucial transparency. Finally, after years of talking about it, that looks like it will go through, but it will take time to build. So I think it's a difficult one for the UK to do, because they're being hit by all the lawyers that have worked for these Russian billionaires for years, and they have established long relationships. And I'd like to mention as well that they have used London libel courts to go after journalists as well, writing about them. So they're very well established in UK society and the economy, and it will be very hard to unpick that.
Right, and of course, as we know, very dangerous for many people who have spoken out. Stephanie, just wanted to end with you. Considering that we're seeing really this ramp up of targeting of these oligarchs, and many people are calling this really the way to financially hit Putin, do you see potentially some of these oligarchs, some of these wealthy billionaires turning on Putin as a result, or will they do sort of what David was mentioning, supposedly donate their funds to victims, call for an end to the war without specifically naming Putin?
Yeah, really interesting to watch that and really watch carefully what they say. So yesterday, Mikhail Friedman and Peter Aven, the Alpha Bank investors, issued a statement to us calling specifically on Russia to end the war. And that went much further than some of the other criticism we've seen, where there've been very, another Russian billionaire, Oleg Deripaska, called for peace talks. Now, they did not single out criticism of Putin, but at the very least, calling on Moscow to end its aggression was one step forward. But I think there's a difficult balancing act to strike here. Abramovich was invited by the Ukrainians to help broker peace talks between Ukraine and Russia. Now, he says he's not close to the Kremlin, but if they think he has some kind of relationship with the Kremlin that can help broker peace talks, then, well, he can't really have it both ways. Which one is it? So I think it's a difficult balancing act for them to strike. But signs that things are shifting would be that there is direct criticism of the Kremlin from these oligarchs.